Okay, so I know this is going to ruffle some feathers, but it needs to be said. And please know that I am coming from a place of love because I know that your efforts come from a good place. But white liberals, you are not saving the Black community. You are holding us back. It's not allyship, it's enabling. You excuse destructive choices, you lower the bar, you hand out sympathy instead of standards, and you call that progress. Here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. We're not the only group with a painful past. Jewish people survived genocide and rebuilt. Asian immigrants came here with nothing and built thriving businesses and schools. We don't hand them safe spaces. We don't rewrite laws to excuse their failures. We don't glorify victimhood for anyone else. So why is that standard different for us? We built an entire system around the lie that Black people can't compete, and we call it justice. DEI, affirmative action, safe spaces, watered down schools, and even lighter sentences for crime. That's not empowerment. That's soft bigotry dressed up as compassion. And it's all causing more harm than good to the Black community. It whispers you're too weak, too damaged, too broken to do this on your own. And we've accepted that lie for far too long. We don't need your pity. We don't need you to lower the bar. We need to be held to the same standard as everyone else. Because true empowerment doesn't come from being coddled. It comes from being called higher. Charlie Kirk said this over and over again. He asked Black America to stop fixating so much on our race and our difficult history. He encouraged everyone from every background and walk of life to make their past a reference, not their residence. And sadly, his honesty caused him to be labeled a racist, despite the fact that he was simply telling us the hard truth. So here's my challenge for white liberals. Stop lowering the bar for us. Stop designing programs that assume that we can't win without a handicap. If you truly believe in Black excellence, then treat us like the powerful, capable, brilliant people that we are. Stand with us, not over us. Walk beside us, not ahead of us. And Black people, if you're still here, slavery happened, oppression exists, but our history is also full of resilience and brilliance. Research Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Washington and Madam C.J. Walker. We've been free for 150 years, but somehow we feel justified in marinating in our victimhood while holding a $1,000 iPhone, rocking $200 shoes, and having nothing and no one standing in our way but ourselves. Pick up your mat and walk.
Greetings everyone, welcome back to my channel once again. And if it's the first time that you're coming across my content, I will kindly request that you hit the like, subscribe and the share button. And to my returning subscribers, I'll also like to take this chance to still thank you and encourage you to interact with this video through liking, commenting and sharing. And in today's episode will be white liberal fatigue. And in this episode, you're seeing that different Black individuals are describing this peculiar phenomenon, and I will kindly request that you watch the rest of this video to the end while I come with my commentaries later on.
Stop going to white liberals for money and then complaining about their power. Malcolm X said the white liberal is the worst enemy to America and the worst enemy to the Black man. The white liberal's purpose is to perpetuate a system that will keep the Black man dependent on the white liberal. Because the truth is, you can't be dependent and free at the same time. And that's the part nobody wants to say out loud, because once they control the way you think and what you depend on, they don't need chains anymore. But for just a minute, step outside of it. I challenge you. Let's do a little thought exercise. Look at this critically, not emotionally. That's where real freedom starts. Because the more you're emotionally attached to your race, the easier it is to control you. It's realizing we've confused education with indoctrination. The idea that we're inferior and therefore we must receive. That's the last stage of colonization, people. The last chain left on our minds, the insistence that we're inferior. Shelby Seals said inferiority was established through white superiority, and that white guilt has infantilized Black America, and it's allowed white liberals to act as our caretakers rather than our equals. And the more we tell white people they need to give in order to be racist, the more we'll receive and the more we'll depend, and the more we'll reinforce the same lie that we're inferior. And it'll never stop. Because dependency isn't progress, it's slavery dressed up as compassion. Because when you depend on the system, you can't be controlled by it. And control is the opposite of freedom. Because freedom is never the reward for moral innocence, it's the reward for moral responsibility, Shelby Steele. The more you rely on them for a check, the more you'll vote for that check. You'll vote for what they call empowerment and assistance. It's not about progress. It's not about excellence. It's about profit and power and your vote. And all that time you spend scrolling, start reading what makes you uncomfortable, not 3-minute videos that enforce the cage around your mind. Slavery was psychological, not just physical. Stop pointing fingers and asking for regression packaged in a reparations check. Change your mindset.
So I mentioned how I don't ever want to live around a bunch of white liberals again. And I spent most of my life living in Santa Cruz, California, where there is a lot of white liberals. And I have to tell you, those are some of the most racist people in America. White liberals have tried to silence my voice, have tried to get me fired. White liberals have called me racial slurs multiple times. White liberals think black people are a monolith and are only allowed to act a certain way, vote a certain way. White liberals are working to lower the educational standards for black and brown kids, which is hurting them. White liberals want to have a permanent brown underclass to do all of their hard work, all the jobs they don't want to do. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons why I never want to live in a majority white liberal area again. And don't even get me started on COVID.
Malcolm X once said that the white liberal is the biggest enemy to the black man. I didn't understand that quote fully for a long time, but now I see it clearer than day. I read something once that described this perfectly. I think it was Akala's book, Natives. This isn't verbatim, but it was something along the lines of liberals will cosplay as people with good values as long as it fits their aesthetic, but when push actually comes to shove and when things potentially are going to get ugly, they dip. I had a bit of an existential crisis recently because a lot of the lefty friends in my area aren't coming to the fundraisers that I've organised. They're not coming with me on protests. They're not coming with me on counter demos. A lot of their excuses for not attending these things is because their mental health is too poor, but they have seemed got the energy to go to pride events or festivals. And I'm not saying that these people are bad people, but if you're only ever showing up and showing off your lefty politics in person at things where it's all lollipops and rainbows, I don't think you're as much of an ally as you think that you are. It's all very well thinking, I'm against what's happening in the UK, I'm against rising fascism, I'm against racism, I want a liberated Palestine. But if you're only ever thinking those things and it's not relaying into actual, in real life action, you are just a lefty in theory and not in practicality. And I am a strong believer that you are only as good as your actions. And by the way, I know that there are lots of different ways that you can show your activism. If you're not going out to protest because you're scared of showing your face or whatever, maybe you're donating or something. I hope that you are. And a lot of the time, in fact, more often than not, the excuses that these people give for not being at these actions is their mental health, which, I'm sorry, I just find that an absurdly privileged take. Going back to how I said a lot of them are still attending pride events, for example, I would bet my bottom quid that around the time of the Stonewall riots, these liberal types would have been nowhere to be seen. And this is kind of the point I'm trying to get to, is that you can't just decide that you're on board with something and start showing your face at something whilst other people have fought the fight to make it safe for you. That's another thing that keeps coming up with these excuses of, oh, I don't feel safe, I don't want to put myself in that position. And in reality, if you're white, you are safer than most in this country right now. When I go to these events, when I go to these fundraisers and the local demos and the larger demos up in London, I look around. Who am I largely surrounded by? People of colour, LGBT people, neurospicy people, or people who have known oppression. Back to the original Malcolm X quote that I started this video with. Why are white liberals so dangerous to the black man or to people of colour in general? Because they pretend to be allies. But when it comes to actually showing up, they disappear. I'm not making this video to talk down to anyone, to put myself on a pedestal. I'm saying this because I know that a lot of the white, liberal, lefty friends that I have do have good values, but I'm confused why you're not really acting on them. And just remember, the Nazis in World War II, it wasn't just the Nazis responsible for what happened to all of those people. It was also the bystanders who, for one reason or another, didn't get involved in stopping it. You are only as good as your actions, so ask yourself, are you doing enough?
White liberals really make me angry, annoyed, because one of the things that I've really realized going through this journey of looking into politics, looking into the dynamics between the left and the right, white people will, and they're not going to explicitly say this, you got to kind of pick up on it. White people will tolerate a lot of these conditions a lot of these policies that negatively affect them as kind of a virtue signaling, and virtue signaling in a couple ways, right? The first virtue signaling is that I'm so hip with the times. I'm so compassionate to homeless people. I'm so compassionate to minorities that I'm willing to tolerate the objective ineffectiveness of this specific policy just to look as though I'm actually helping people. The second one, and the kind of insidious one, is like, I don't care if I'm being taxed more because I'm doing so well that although this objectively will make me pay more in taxes, will end up making my life so difficult, I'm doing so well economically that I'm able to tolerate this. So it's like a double virtue signal. And it is really annoying because it just hurts everybody other than you, which you have kind of, you're kind of insulated from reality.
One of the reasons I realized that liberals don't give a fuck about black people is when I realized the stats for abortions, okay? Especially because this was during, BLM riots and whatnot pushed by white people on the left side. But when I realized that black people obviously make up 13% of the population, but make up the majority of abortions, I was like, this is weird, okay? And it's not like I looked at it like, why are black women getting abortions? I was looking at it like, why are these white liberals pushing so hard for abortions that are keeping the black population so small? You feel what I'm saying? And then, when I went down the rabbit hole of Margaret Sanger, I was like, this is a weird coincidence. This is very odd. Because liberals like to talk about eugenics all the time. Like that Sydney Sweeney ad, literally about blue jeans. They were like, this is eugenics. No, I think I made a video already about this a few weeks ago. What's eugenics is what Margaret Sanger was doing with Planned Parenthood. That's real eugenics. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm anti-abortion, right? I'm more so like pro-education and pro like celibacy, pro not dating, pro staying in your own fucking lane. When I realized that liberals were like foaming out of the mouth about abortions, I was like, this is so weird. Because making abortions illegal isn't going to make them go away, right? It's not going to stop women from getting them. Almost like making pew-pews illegal isn't going to stop people from finding them illegally. In 2020, I remember going down this rabbit hole of Planned Parenthood. Some things I probably won't say in this video because it was fucking nuts. Margaret Sanger was an entire white supremacist. She did not want the black population to grow. Abortion rate was higher among black and Hispanic women compared to their white peers. 28.6 per 1,000 women among black women compared to 12.3 per 1,000 among Hispanic women and 6.4 per 1,000 among white women. I was doing my own digging around 2020 about the Democratic Party. I was like, this is very peculiar for people that act like they care about black people to be constantly pushing for more abortions. And the stats don't lie. Black women are getting them more often per capita than white women. To me, I saw this and I was like, this is straight up eugenics. This tied in coincidentally with the Democrats creating the Triple K. I was like, a lot of these things are really connecting in such an odd way. My whole life I grew up, I was like, oh yeah, if I'm a Democrat, that means I'm not racist and I care about black people. That's kind of what you're told in the blue state. And you're told that anyone who votes red is a racist. But when all these dots started connecting, I was like, this is kind of weird. That's kind of when my whole reality started shifting about Democrats and how they care about black people. I was like, oh, they just use them as pawns because they simply need the black or Hispanic vote to win. Even though at the same time, they push to keep the black population down all these years. It's a bit weird when you realize these things.
The problem with white liberals when it comes to the black community is that they don't even realize that they're doing more harm than good. And I firmly and wholeheartedly know to be true that for most of them, it's coming from a loving, compassionate, kind-hearted place, but it's still objectively causing harm. The white liberal sees the black community as a community that needs to be safe. We need to add further protections for the black community. We need to rewrite laws for the black community. We need to hand out government assistance to keep helping the Black community, when all that's doing is keeping them in a self-destructive cycle. Rely on handouts, rely on the government, rely on external help. And I'm sorry, but this is a form of bigotry. It's not your intention, but it's backhanded and it's there. You can't succeed without my help. That's racism. Not one of the messages in the liberal policy for the Black community is, you are great on your own, you just need to see it. And that's what conservatives have been trying to say for years and years. You don't need liberals in office or an immense amount of government assistance to be great. You are great. Just get out of your own way. Get out of the influence that makes you feel like you don't have a place in this world outside of your community, outside of drinking or drugs or music. And if this wasn't the truth, then why do we have Black doctors, Black scientists, Black authors, Black surgeons, Black engineers, Black professors, Black teachers? Hell, we had a Black president who wouldn't have been elected without the white vote. The only thing stopping the Black community from being the best it can possibly be is liberal ideology. Instead of passing out standards to the Black community, all you do is pass out sympathy. And you excuse destructive choices just so they don't feel excluded from your love. And again, I know it's coming from a good place, but that's not allyship. I know that the Black community has an incredibly dark past, but so do most cultures and races. The Jewish community survived a genocide and rebuilt their entire country with some of the smartest people on the planet. The Asian community were thrown in internment camps, millions of them. And they rebuilt, and again, now they're dominating most of our professional world and our universities. There is no reason that the Black community cannot do the same. The only thing stopping them is you, the white liberal, convincing them that without your assistance, they can't rebuild like those other communities did. You convince them every single day that they are too weak, too broken, and too damaged and traumatized to do anything on their own. And you don't think that's a form of holding someone back?
After coming out the quote-unquote conservative closet, I've come to realize that there is nothing a white liberal hates more than a Black conservative. I mean, they hate conservatives overall, but there is nothing they despise more than a Black man with conservative values, for the simple sake that they are no longer able to use us as a prop or as somebody they can attach themselves to in order to, rid themselves of their white guilt or essentially virtue signal themselves to. Now, I remember this had to be maybe 7 to 8 years ago when I was still living in the Bay Area. And if anybody out there knows what the Bay Area is like, it is essentially the hub of wokeness. It is like the woke mecca, right? The factory of wokeness. And so I remember being at a coffee shop that I would frequent, and every now and then I would run into this lady who was a professor at one of the local junior colleges in San Jose. Me and this lady would, strike up conversations, real light conversations, etc. We never got into politics or belief systems until this one day. And the one day we did, it actually became a debate, I guess you would say, where she was defending her communistic beliefs, even though she had come from a socialist, communistic country into the United States to escape it, but was still defending it. But nevertheless, I'm defending free market capitalism. And then that leads into politics. And she soon finds out that I indeed have conservative values. And, I was not a registered Republican at that time, but I was clearly on my way. And from that day forward, after we had that discussion, this woman who would always say hi to me when she saw me, start up a little conversation, completely ignored me. I'm talking about would walk right past me like I didn't exist. All of a sudden, after that conversation, I was no longer useful for her. She could no longer use me as a means to get some sort of gratification. Look at me associating myself with this poor Black person, and this is what I've come to realize when it comes to the entire dynamic of why white liberals try so hard to push this narrative. I mean, I think nobody does a better job at keeping racism alive than the race hustlers who get paid for it and the white liberals who use it as a means to virtue signal to the world that they're this righteous human being and, we should give them some sort of props for being that, aka the white savior. And it makes perfect sense to me because the entire foundation of the Democratic Party is that of control, right? It was the Democratic Party that fought to keep slavery intact. And the Republican Party was created as a reactionary party in order to eradicate the Democrats' plot to keep slavery essentially forever.
Liberal white women are the worst. They are the absolute worst. Today, After I finished my day job, I went to go clean a house for this woman. I had never cleaned for this woman before, and I knew that she was going to try to talk to me because she was very friendly. And let me set this up for y'all. You know, when I come in, I'm in my uniform, and so we're talking about my day job at Chick-fil-A, you know, and everybody likes to tell me how they like the food, which is great food, and I don't mind. But, you know, I came straight to her house, so we're talking about this, and I asked her if I could change into my, you know, my cleaning clothes, and she's like, sure, and she introduces me to her husband and her granddaughter. Yay, everything's cool. But then they left, and she just wants to start talking, and I already knew. I knew Kamala was going to come up because we're alone. I'm a black woman. This is Austin, Texas. I knew it, and she did not fail to deliver. Sure enough, she smiled at me and said, aren't you excited about Kamala? No, I'm not. And I tried my best not to roll my neck too much and frown up and look like I was smelling onions, but it was really hard. And I'm not sure I succeeded. Actually, I know I didn't. Because I told her that not only did I not support Kamala, that the Democrats are the party that started the Klan. She tried to argue with me that the parties switched. And I've heard this goofy argument many times from many other liberals and Democrats that the parties have switched. When? Because after they got rid of Lincoln, the Democrats took control and Jim Crow went into effect. That is history. They got rid of Lincoln. After they did that, Jim Crow went into effect. It was a Democratic president. The Democrats had control. They were upset that slavery was over and done with. So when did this party switch? Where was the switch? Because Jim Crow went on. I went to history.com to look up when did Jim Crow end, and Jim Crow laws essentially ended, according to history.com, Jim Crow laws named after a black minstrel show character. The laws, which existed for about 100 years from the post-Civil War era until 1968, were meant to marginalize African Americans by denying them the right to vote, hold jobs, get an education, or other opportunities. But that went on until that was Jim Crow. That was them. That was the people that's why they got rid of Lincoln, so that Reconstruction would never take place. Anyway, there was no switch of the parties, is my point, and I'm tired of everybody trying to alter history. That this is the truth. The truth is the Klan was founded because they didn't want Reconstruction to take place. The Jim Crow laws were all them. Anyway, I digress. That woman then proceeded to tell me that from an educational standpoint, she just thought that the Democrats were so great. I told her they're having struggle sessions in schools. I am part of Moms for Liberty. I know that in the schools, they are teaching the children that one child assaults the other one. We need to now sit down and we need to talk. Those two people, the assaulter and the assaultee, need to sit down and then have a conversation about what did one do to provoke the other one to attack them. This is real. This is not a joke. And when you say these things to him, she just looked at me just blankly. I said, and men beating up women, I'm supposed to get on board with that? I mean, there's so many things. And she was just looking at me blankly. She had nothing to say. I had to be quiet because, again, I'm in her house. But I'm just like, you know, if you can say to me that you think that I support her, then I get to say whatever I want at this point. I mean, what? Because your husband is white, do I get to say, I don't know, I thought he was a Trump supporter, he's white? I'm so sick and tired of the assumption from white, especially liberal women. Whenever they get alone, they always want to try to talk like, you know, aren't we buddies? Aren't we on the same side? You know, me and you, girl, we both like Kamala. No, bitch, we don't. We don't. I said I was going to be calm when I tried to make this video, and I guess this is about as calm as it gets, because it just makes my blood boil that they get to assume that they know anything about me. Oh, I even asked her about the rally that Harris had in Atlanta. I said, do you know about that? And she was excited. Yeah. I said, do you know anything about Megan Thee Stallion's lyrics? Do any of those lyrics you think are appropriate for a political convention of any sort? She said, I don't know about her lyrics. I don't even know what to say. I was fuming. All I know is today I was glad that I could be cleaning so I could be getting out my anger, sweeping the floor real hard, because I was just done. After listening to her and talking to her, I just thought, and these are the motherfuckers we got voting.
I would like to talk to white people in the room today because I'm tired of you guys being overly apologetic. It doesn't feel good when you think that you are helping us when you're not. I want to tell you this right now. I don't need any help. I'm not somebody that's seeking any help. I had a friend during the George Floyd protest. He said, it is so sad what they're doing to you. Now, that was appropriate considering the context of the situation, but he had said this before the George Floyd incident. And I said, hey, it's okay. I'm happy you're here for the march. I'm happy you're here protesting. He said, I am always going to be here for you because it is so hard to be black. And I said, how would you know? How would you know? He said, I just see it. It's everywhere. Being black is the worst thing to be in America. I said, oh, well, okay. That feels poor. I don't know if I would say that. That feels a bit specific. He said, no, I would never want to be black. I said, okay, that's a bit much. All right, that's okay. Personally, I would never say that sentence. That is an insane sentence. He said, do you want to be black? If I could use my whiteness to help, I'm gonna. I said, oh, it feels backhanded. I don't really know how to phrase it. It feels very backhanded. That doesn't feel good to hear. Personally, I hate that. It makes me feel like you're doing this out of obligation, pity, as if you think you're better than me somehow. I don't know. It makes me feel annoyed when I hear that. I don't like white performative liberalism. I guess that's the best way I could phrase it. It just feels strange to hear statements like that to me.
Well, thank you once again if you've watched this video to this part, and let's get straight to it. Well, white liberal fatigue is a scenario whereby you're getting to see that the blacks are becoming exhausted of the immense support that these white liberals are trying to put on them. And you'll notice that it is always almost automatically believed that every black individual is a liberal. And in doing so, we have seen it has gotten to a point that the white liberals are also coming out in numbers to show support to their fellow members, that is the black community. And this again has gotten to a point that the black American community is feeling like there is much more to the support that these white liberals are offering to them than what meets the eye. And hence, in this episode, you're seeing different individuals talking about white liberal fatigues, whereby you're getting to see that most of these white liberals are coming out to show immense support, especially on online platforms, calling out their fellow whites, posting aggressively and being loud about the issues that are majorly concerned with the black individual, to a point that the whole idea or the whole movement is becoming about them. A good example of this is the Black Lives Matter movement, whereby you get to see that the white liberals joined the movement, and it got to a point that they were calling out the other whites and claiming that whatever evils they did to the black community was not worth it, and it's about time that they repented and showed love to the community. Yes, this support, as much as it's still controversial, is something that has led to a type of exhaustion by the black community, whereby you're getting to see they are still not standing the presence of the white liberals who want to force themselves into everything that is concerned with the blacks. For the white liberals joining these black movements, you notice that most of the time they try to make these events about themselves, and you're seeing that it's becoming a personal performance stage whereby these white liberals are trying really hard to draw their attention to themselves, whereby they become loud and post aggressively about issues related to the black community, calling out their fellow whites. And in doing so, we are getting to learn that it's a way of them expressing their white guilt. And in doing so, they have turned this legit black movement to a moral project whereby they get to try and justify themselves and also try to apologize to the black community for all the evils that they believe their ancestors did to them. And as much as they really try to show their support, we're getting to learn that their support is not really genuine. As one of the things that stand out with the white liberals who are very vocal about issues related to the black community is that once the trend dies, that's the point whereby their voice also gets to die, and you see them no longer talking about issues related to the black community, and they quickly switch to other issues that is mostly related to them and their whiteness. And in doing so, this becomes a direct insult to the black community and the individuals who are legitimately or genuinely affected by the issues that they themselves experience as black people. And these issues, whether they address it or not, the black individuals cannot walk away from them, because it's a real life event that is affecting them directly. But for the white liberals, this is another time or another chance for them to gain that attention from the online platform, and immediately the trend dies, these individuals turn to something else, leaving the blacks to their own means. Other than that, again, based on the videos that you've watched, you'll notice that another reason that as to why most black Americans are having this white liberal fatigue is the fact that the white liberals sometimes tend to overdo their support, and also offering to give out this support in instances whereby the support was not needed by the people in the first place. This makes it an awkward moment when these individuals come out to be more emotional rather than being practical when it comes to solving these legit and genuine problems that the black community members are actually facing in the United States right now. And in doing so, it becomes as a way of fatigue or exhaustion to the true individuals who are committed to the movement, bringing another form of dragging to the whole movement, as again handling or giving attention to these white individuals again requires the black labor and resources. And this only ends up draining the whole movement, negating all the progress that the black individuals had already done in the movement. For the black individuals, this act of the white liberals of trying to be always there, especially when a trendy issue arises, is actually being viewed as a form of overindulgence, whereby these individuals try to overcompensate for some form of guilt, shame, or even anger about some negative feelings that they harbored towards the black community. And you notice that for individuals who are genuinely interested in helping the black community, one of the best ways of doing this is being more practical about it, offering that support without going out to the world to try and convince them that you are doing this support to the black community. And that is when you get to see the real changes happening, whereby these individuals who are really committed to the black movement, let's say these white liberals, they are supposed to offer listening ear and offer that support to the black individuals without trying to make the whole thing about them. So for the white liberals, you're getting to see that it has gotten to a point the black individuals are having this white liberal fatigue, and they are coming out in numbers to talk about it. Yes, I know this is a very sensitive issue, but this is the reality that is happening in the United States. And for individuals who get called out, for the white liberals who get called out, you'll notice that they usually instantly turn around and have this anger expression. And that's when you get to see the true colors of these individuals, whereby the racist insults and demeaning comments usually arise. And this is mainly common, especially when they interact with black individuals who are very conservative and are more leaning to the right, as these individuals choose to have rather naive and barbaric tactics when handling them. Well, this marks the end of this episode. Kindly don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the share button, and see you in the next episode.